Hey guys, how's it going? Master Cal here, and today I'm going to be doing the 29th video for my 2021 NFL offseason preview series, the Green Bay Packers. So for the second straight year, the Packers went 13-3 in the regular season under Matt LaFleur, and once again they fell short in the NFC Championship Game, this time to the eventual Super Bowl champion Buccaneers. So obviously last offseason was notable with the Packers drafting Aaron Rodgers' replacement Jordan Love in the first round, trading up a few spots to get him. Love wound up not seeing any regular season action though as a third string quarterback. However, this does signify that Aaron Rodgers is on a ticking clock, and despite the fact that he's coming off an MVP season, the pressure will still be on him to continue to compete. Realistically, Rodgers is likely the starter through 2022, and then after that, they'll have to make a decision because that's when they'll be able to easily move off of Rodgers' contract. And also, that'll be at the end of Love, and also that will be when Love will set to enter the final year of his rookie deal before the fifth-year option would have to be picked up. So it's an interesting crossroads there, as we'll see if Rodgers can get a second ring with the Packers or if he has to do it somewhere else. So there are other offensive starters by cap space. You've got A.J. Dillon at running back, second rounder in 2020 out of Boston College. The Packers were criticized for making that draft pick because running back wasn't necessarily a need at the time, especially considered to other positions like getting wide receiver help for Rodgers. And Dillon didn't play a whole lot his rookie season as he was the third stringer behind Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Both of those backs are free agents though, and so it could wind up being a nice selection this year if they wind up losing both those guys and Dillon is forced to take on a larger role in year two. At left tackle is David Bakhtiari, who's been with the Packers since I think 2014. Bakhtiari signed an extension during the regular season. He was set to become a free agent this offseason. And good thing for him because he wound up suffering an ACL tear in practice leading up to their Week 17 game, which forced him to miss the regular season. So kind of like Ronnie Stanley, those two guys were able to get extensions in before they wound up suffering pretty serious injuries. At left guard, I have Lucas Patrick, a former undrafted free agent who saw a lot of playing time as a starter, as a starter last year. At center is Elston Jenkins, which is the position that he played in college. Jenkins is actually the starting left guard for the Packers, but that's because of Corey Linsley, who is also a free agent, and because of that, I have Jenkins classified as the position that he was drafted from. And we'll see what the Packers decide to do, if they bring in somebody else at the center position, or if they're fine with Jenkins shifting over to center. Jenkins had an outstanding year last year. At right guard is Billy Turner, former Dolphin, former Bronco, in his third year with the Packers. Turner has played both right guard and right tackle in his time in the league. He was a right guard in 2019, and then when Brian Bulaga left, the Packers brought in Rick Wagner on a 2-year deal after he was released by the Lions. And then Wagner was kind of in and out of the starting lineup, and then Turner played both right guard and right tackle. And then Wagner, speaking of him, Wagner has actually been released by the Green Bay Packers for cap space, so we'll see what happens there. Wagner might end up deciding to retire, so there is that option there. And so the Packers will have a bit of shuffling on their offensive line this offseason. Wide receiver is Devonte Adams, one of the best in the business, who's coming off a fantastic season where I would say he was the best receiver in the game last year. Just very difficult to cover, can run almost any route with ease, good hands, solid speed, and just a regular do-it-all. He's entering the final year of his contract, so I imagine he'll be a big priority for the Packers to lock up on an extension. Number 2 is going to be Devin Functions, former second-round pick of the Carolina Panthers. Functions hasn't played in a game since Week 1 of the 2019 season. When he was with the Colts, he suffered a broken collarbone in that game and wasn't able to come back from it. He took another prove-it deal with the Packers last offseason, but he wound up opting out because of COVID. He and the Packers recently restructured his deal. That saved the Packers a little bit of cap space and it removed the incentives in his deal. And so it sounds like Funches will at least be there to compete for a spot. And the number 3, I have Marquez Valdez Scantling, 5th rounder in 2018. Valdez Scantling had a pretty productive season last year. He brings some speed to the table, and he had his best season as a pro so far. At tight end, I have Jace Sternberger, 3rd rounder in 2019 from Mississippi State. Sternberger hasn't lived up to his draft billing, however, and has barely played in his 2 seasons. He was injured a lot of his rookie season, and then he lost playing time last year to Robert Tonyan, who looks to be the starter. Tonyan is currently a restricted free agent, and so Sternberger could very well find himself on the roster bubble if he doesn't have a good camp. On the defensive side, you've got Dean Lowry. I think he was a 4th or a 5th rounder in 2016 who signed an extension in the 2019 offseason. He's done pretty solid. Defensive tackle Kenny Clark, 1st rounder by the Packers in 2016 from UCLA. Clark is one of the better interior defensive linemen in the game. He's not a Chris Jones or an Aaron Donald, but he's very disruptive against both the run and the pass, and he signed an extension before the season started. This past season started. And then you got Kingsley Kiki, who I think was a 5th rounder in 2019, whose playing time almost doubled from year 1 to year 2. Outside linebacker Zadarius Smith, who's emerged as one of the better pass rushers in the game since coming over to Green Bay from Baltimore as a free agent in 2019. He was great in 2019, had another great year in 2020. Middle linebacker was kind of a rotation for the Packers in between injuries and up and down play. So the highest cap hit was Christian Kirksey, a former Cleveland Brown who came over to the Packers after he was released by Cleveland following 2 injury-depleted seasons, having played for then Packers defensive coordinator Mike Pettin when Pettin was the head coach of the Browns. And Kirksey had a decent-ish bounce-back year. He did miss some time due to injuries, but he did play most of the season. Unfortunately, Green Bay did decide to release him, and that was because of their cap situation. Kirksey, just a couple days ago, agreed to a deal with the Houston Texans. And then you got Oren Burks, who I think was a 7th rounder in 2018. He has the highest cap hit out of any of the other linebackers on the roster. Ty Summers, Kamal Martin, and Chris Barnes, who all saw defensive action. Barnes, an undrafted free agent in 2020 from UCLA, saw the most action and showed the most promise, so I imagine that he will definitely be one of the starting spots and will look to solidify a more permanent role there. Burks is more of a special teamer, but he did see 10%-ish of defensive snaps. And then off the other edge is going to be Preston Smith, former member of Washington, who also came over with Zadarius Smith to the Packers in free agency. Smith had a pretty good first season in Green Bay, but he actually had a bit of a down season in year 2. He was off to kind of a bad start, but he did get better and more disruptive as the season went on. Green Bay did keep him on a restructured deal, though, so any speculation that he could be a cap casualty is put to rest now. In the secondary, you've got Jairi Alexander, 1st rounder in 2018 from Louisville, who's been a very productive corner in his time in the league. His 5th-year option should be a lock to be picked up, and I imagine he's probably the 2nd guy in line for an extension behind Adams. Their number 2 corner is Josh Jackson, who's a 2nd rounder in 2018. Unfortunately, he is underwhelmed. He started a lot as a rookie, but he lost his starting job in year 2, and he didn't play a whole lot in year 3 either, mostly filling in for Kevin King when he was injured. King is a free agent, though, so it remains to be seen how they feel Jackson. And then you got Khadar Hallman. I forget if he was a draft pick in 2019 or 2020. Mostly special teamer, but he did see some defensive snaps last year as well. At safety is Adrian Amos, former Chicago Bear, who came over to the Packers in 2019 as a free agent, had another productive season for Green Bay, and he also agreed to a restructure to save Green Bay cap space. And then their other safety is Darnell Savage Jr., 1st rounder in 2019, and Savage has been pretty good for Green Bay as well. You got long snapper Hunter Bradley, punter J.K. Scott, and then longtime kicker Mason Crosby still going strong. Bradley and Scott are both entering the final year of their rookie contracts, and so both those guys will likely be up for new deals, and then I guess we'll see how long they want to keep rolling with Crosby. So they're free agents. You've got center Corey Linsley, 1st-team All-Pro last year, is the best center in the game. Starting tight end Mercedes Lewis. Number 2 corner Kevin King. Guard Lane Taylor, who wound up winning a starting job in camp but unfortunately he suffered an injury in week 1 as he's been banged up the last 2 or 3 seasons. Wide receiver Tavon Austin, tackle Jared Valdez, defensive lineman Damon Harrison, running back Tyler Irvin, defensive lineman Billy Wynn, linebacker James Burgess, defensive lineman Montravius Adams. Tight end Robert Tonyan is a restricted free agent. He took over the starting job about maybe a third to halfway through the season and showed some promise. Safety Will Redmond. Cornerback Perry Nickerson is a restricted free agent. Defensive lineman Tyler Lancaster is a restricted free agent. Nickel corner Chandon Sullivan is a restricted free agent. Running back Jamal Williams. Wide receiver Alan Lazard is an exclusive rights free agent. Running back Aaron Jones. The Packers elected not to franchise tag him. Quarterback Tim Boyle is a restricted free agent. Per reports, the Packers are not going to tender him, which means that Love will be the top backup to Rodgers next year. Safety Raven Green is a restricted free agent. Tackle Yash Nijman is an exclusive rights free agent. Wide receiver Malik Taylor is an exclusive rights free agent. Corner Kabion Ento is an exclusive rights free agent. The Packers have tendered him a contract. And then outside linebacker Randy Ramsey is an exclusive rights free agent. So Green Bay is right around the cap line. They were $2.35 million over the cap, but that was before the restructures for Adrian Amos and Billy Turner came into effect. So the Packers should be probably, like, I'd say between $2 to $5 million under the cap, which, I mean, that isn't really a whole lot to work with, and ideally you'd like to have more than that. And obviously, since the pressure is on the Packers to put a winning team around Rodgers, to give him one more run there. So as far as needs go for the Packers, I would say tight end is a need for them. Of course, the Packers could tender Tonyan as a restricted free agent, or they could sign him to a shorter-term deal to avoid having to go through an offer sheet process and risk losing him to an offer sheet they can't afford. Adding some reinforcements to the defensive line will be key, and then shoring up the cornerback room. They're also going to need at least one offensive lineman because of the potential departure of Lindsley and also the release of Wagner, so they're going to have to do some kind of configuration there. I've alluded to it before. They could either, and I would say ideally they either need a tackle or a right tackle or a center. They could go with a guard, though, as well. If they elect to go with a center, then that means Jenkins will likely go back to left guard, which would probably put Patrick at right guard and then Billy Turner at right tackle. If they go with a right tackle, then that means they'll keep Turner at guard. If they go with a guard, then Turner would play tackle. So the positional versatility of Billy Turner and Elston Jenkins will come into play for whatever starting caliber position they look to add there. And certainly they could elect to re-sign Lane Taylor as well. And that could be the extent of it and maybe all they could afford to do. And also David Bakhtiari's health will also come into play, like how he's recovered from that ACL injury is working out. So as far as who their cap casualties could be, they could cut Funches, but given that they restructured his deal, I don't believe that they'll do that. They've already cut Rick Wagner. They could cut Lucas Patrick, but he fared well enough that I think they'll keep him, and he's on a reasonably priced deal. They could release Dean Lowry and go with a cheaper, younger option there. They've already cut Kirksey. Preston Smith, as I mentioned before, now that his contract has been restructured, he's not going to be cut. And then, that's honestly really about it. I mean, theoretically, they could release Mason Crosby as well, but then they'd have to find a replacement at kicker, and he's still doing solid enough that I think they're going to hang on to him. So that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for the next offseason preview video.